What if Messi's heir were not the most media-friendly, nor the most viral, nor the one who screams his talent in every play? What if the name that is truly starting to grow were someone else? Someone quieter, someone more refined, more cerebral, more composed, someone who, curiously, seems to understand the game with that same calm that for 2 decades made Messi something impossible to explain. Because yesterday, at La Bombonera, while Argentina beat Mauritania 2-1 in a warm-up friendly, Nico Paz did not just score his first goal for the senior national team. He scored a free kick. One of those goals that do not just add to the scoreboard, but leave behind an image, a symbol, a feeling. He started the match, made it 2-0 from a set piece, and Messi came on in the second half to watch up close as another Argentine left-footer began to write his name into the conversation about the future. And that is where the big question of this video appears. Not whether Nico Paz is already the new Messi, because that would be unfair, absurd, and even cruel. The real question is different, more interesting, deeper. Can Nico Paz become Messi's footballing heir in the Argentina national team? Can he be that player who, when Leo is no longer there, takes on part of his creative responsibility, part of his symbolic weight, part of that impossible task of making everyone else play better? First, we have to understand who Nico Paz is, because a lot of people have already heard his name, seen a few highlights, read that he is a gem, but they still have not fully placed him in their minds. Nico was born in Santa Cruz de Tenerife in 2004. He is the son of Pablo Paz, a former Argentina international and World Cup player in France '98. He grew up surrounded by soccer and pressure, started out at Tenerife, made the jump to Real Madrid's academy at age 11, and ended up developing into an attacking midfielder with technique, composure, and vision. Later, he made his debut for Madrid's first team, and then found at Como under Cesc Fabregas the ideal context to become a real footballer, not just a prospect. And this is not hype. We are not talking about a romantic illusion built from one isolated goal or from the usual excitement that shows up every time a talented kid appears. Nico Paz had already been pushing this story forward for a while. He was named the best under-23 player in Serie A for 2024/25. And this season, his offensive impact kept growing until he reached double-digit numbers in goals, along with several assists. In fact, he grew so much that in Spain, it is already seen as almost certain that Real Madrid will activate his buyback clause to bring him back for the 2026-27 season. In other words, we are not talking about some distant project. We are talking about a footballer who has already entered the serious radar of giant clubs and of a world champion national team. But if this video is about Nico Paz and Messi, then there is one scene that cannot be ignored. And today, looking back at it with perspective, it almost feels like a deliberately written prologue. October 2024, Argentina against Bolivia. Nico Paz's official debut for the senior national team. He comes on for a few minutes, and instead of hiding, instead of playing it safe, instead of limiting himself to not making mistakes, he does something better. He gets involved. He combines. He dares. And he ends up assisting Messi on one of his goals. After the match, Leo did not give him an empty compliment. He said that despite his age, he had an incredible head on his shoulders, a lot of quality, and that in this team, he was going to feel comfortable. That moment matters, because it was not just an assist. It was almost an official introduction. The day Nico Paz stepped into Messi's world and did not look out of place. And that is where this topic becomes fascinating, because the possible heir to Messi does not appear as a copy of Messi. He appears, precisely, as someone who understands some of the things that made Messi so special. The pause, the vision, the reading of advantage, the sensitivity to play the ball where others force things, the ability not to play in a rush even when everything around him demands speed. Nico Paz is not an electric winger built for highlight plays. He is not a penalty box striker either. He is something else. He is a player who seems to think the play half a second earlier. And sometimes in elite football, that half second is worth more than power, more than physicality, more than any trendy idea in the game. That is why yesterday's goal was so important. Not just because of the strike itself, which was very good. Not just because it was his first goal for the senior national team, but because of what it represented. A 21-year-old kid wearing Argentina's shirt at La Bombonera, scoring from a free kick while Messi is still there, still existing, still carrying weight, still organizing the entire ecosystem of the team. In another era, that goal would have simply been a nice stat. Today, it feels like a generational image, As if Argentine football had for 1 second seen a possible transition. As if the future had for once stopped looking like a void. And the detail becomes even more cinematic when you remember Messi's own moment. Just days ago, Leo reached 900 goals in his professional career. And very shortly after, with Inter Miami, he also reached 71 free-kick goals, surpassing Pelé's total. So while Messi's present is still adding chapters to a legend that seems endless, Nico Paz appears with a free kick of his own for the Argentina national team. It is not that he is taking the torch yet, not yet, but he is leaving a sign, as if to say, when the time comes to look beyond Messi, maybe it will not all be empty. Maybe there is already someone capable of inheriting part of the language. Now then, there is an uncomfortable truth that has to be said here. No one replaces Messi. No one. There is no replacement for the best player in the history of the Argentina national team. There is no possible clone. There is no linear succession. The problem with looking for the new Messi is that it usually ends up ruining the player before he can become himself. Because he is not allowed to grow, he is asked to repeat the unrepeatable. And with Nico Paz, that would be a mistake. So then, why talk about an heir? Because inheriting does not always mean copying. Sometimes it means continuing a mission in a different way. Messi inherited things from Maradona, but he was never Maradona. And whoever comes after Messi will not be Messi either. What Argentina needs is not a duplicate. It needs another mind, another talent capable of organizing chaos, another player who does not feel the ball burn at his feet, another name who can take on, even if only partially, that responsibility of thinking the national team's attack once the genius from Rosario is no longer there. And that is where Nico Paz truly enters the picture. Because there is something in his profile that fits very well with the Argentina that is coming. He has European technique, yes, but also Argentine sensitivity. He has elite training, but he does not play as if he wants to impress every second. He has goals, he has the final pass, he has vision, and above all, he has a very unusual serenity for his age. And in a national team that, for years, lived around the emotional security Messi provided. That serenity is not a minor detail. It could be a necessity. In fact, one of the most powerful things about Nico is that he does not seem to fight with the game. He does not go to war against the match. He interprets it. And that, for a post-Messi national team, would be pure gold. Because when Messi leaves, Argentina will not only lose goals, assists, or free kicks, it will lose a way of calming the match down. It will lose an organizing brain, a player who makes you feel that, even when everything gets complicated, someone understands exactly what is happening. And in terms of style, nature, and sensitivity, Nico Paz is one of the very few young Argentines who seem to have something of that quality. Of course, he still has a very long way to go, and that also has to be said. He lacks continuity with the national team. He lacks truly heavy matches. He still has to endure hostile environments, qualify, fall, get back up, make mistakes wearing Argentina's shirt, and then demand the ball again. He still has to compete for a stable place in a national team where important names still coexist. He still has to prove that his talent can hold up once he is no longer a surprise. Because one thing is to break through. Something very different is to stay. But it is also true that the signs are becoming harder and harder to ignore. Scaloni called him up, used him, put him close to Messi, gave him context, and yesterday he got his reward. Messi already praised him. And today, in the senior team's training match against the under-20 side, the AFA showed Nico Paz integrated into the team Scaloni lined up. Another sign that his name no longer appears only as a bet for the future, but as a real resource within the immediate present. And that takes us to the heart of this script. The video is not just about whether Nico Paz can be a star. That already seems fairly clear. It is not just about yesterday's great goal either. It is about something deeper, hope. That very Argentine need to start seeing a light on the horizon every time people talk about the day after Messi. Because even though Leo is still playing, even though he is still breaking records and challenging time, we all know the end is closer than before. And when that happens, the national team is not just going to need a good footballer. It is going to need someone who dares to inhabit the emotional space Messi will leave behind. Maybe Nico Paz is not the new Messi. Maybe he should not be. Maybe the mistake is framing the question that way. But if we change just one word, everything becomes more interesting. Not the new Messi. The heir to an idea. The idea that Argentina can keep having a footballer capable of thinking better than the rest. capable of slowing the game down when everyone else is running, capable of seeing a passing lane no one else sees, capable of accepting that the shirt is heavy, yes, but that the ball also protects, capable of building the future without needing to look too much like the past. And in that sense, Nico Paz is starting to provide answers. Not with statements, not with marketing, not with empty comparisons. With football, with an official debut in which he assisted Messi, with praise from Messi himself, with a serious season in Europe, with individual awards, with Real Madrid's interest in bringing him back, and now with a free kick for the senior national team that did not sound like just a goal, but like a message. Because maybe that is what inheriting in football is about. Not about occupying an identical throne, but about being ready when the moment comes to carry part of its weight. And Nico Paz, today, seems closer than anyone else to that. Not because he has already arrived, but because, unlike so many others, his story does not feel forced. It feels organic, as if every step makes sense, as if his football, instead of asking for comparisons, simply attracts them on its own. Yesterday, he scored a free kick wearing Argentina's shirt. He has been calling for his chance for quite some time. Messi has already looked at him up close and approved. Scaloni has already opened the door for him. And maybe we are watching the beginning of something. So the question remains, is Nico Paz Messi's new heir? Maybe it is still too early to say it outright. But after yesterday, it no longer seems exaggerated to ask it. And in Argentine football, sometimes everything starts like that. With a question, with a sign, with a left-footed strike, and with the suspicion that the future at last has already begun.